I want you to picture a scene. We are back in, say, ancient Greece, maybe Athens. You walk into a square and you see a group of philosophers. They're brilliant, they're articulate, and they are debating the absolute nuances of, I don't know, the nature of the soul. They have logic that would make your head spin. It's complex, it's sophisticated, it's the height of intellectual achievement.
Okay, I'm there. It sounds impressive.
Now walk down the street to a temple, you see a grandmother. She's not debating anything. She's not writing a treatise. She is simply washing her hands in a specific basin, lighting a small fire, and bowing 3 times. She does this every single day.
A simple, repetitive act.
Exactly. Now fast forward 2,000 years. The complex arguments of those philosophers.
Gone.
Most of them are dust. They're gone. Maybe a few fragments survived in a library that didn't burn down, or we have secondhand accounts of what they might have said. But that ritual, the washing, the fire, the bowing.
People are still doing that.
People are still doing that today, often in the exact same way.
It creates such a fascinating tension, doesn't it? We are trained to think that the big ideas, the intellectual breakthroughs, the why, are the things that endure. But history suggests that the what, the simple action, is actually bulletproof.
That is the mystery we are tackling today. We're looking at a really provocative piece of writing titled The Endurance of Form, Why Ritual Outlasts Philosophy. And I have to say, this deep dive completely flipped my perspective.
How so?
I usually, I roll my eyes at ritual. It feels stiff. It feels mindless. But this argument suggests that mindlessness might actually be the secret weapon that protects the truth.
It's a powerful idea because it challenges our modern obsession with understanding. We live in an explanation-heavy world. I mean, if you can't explain why you're doing something, you're treated as if you're ignorant.
Right.
But the argument here is that the moment you prioritize the explanation over the action, you've actually introduced a fatal weakness.
A weakness? That sounds so backwards. I feel like if I understand why I'm doing something, like if I get the health benefits of a diet or the symbolism of a holiday, I'm way more likely to stick with it.
Of course.
If I'm just doing it because you told me to, I'm going to quit the second I get bored.
You would think so. But that logic assumes that you and your understanding are stable. And that is a very, very generous assumption. The mission for this deep dive is to unpack why doing simple, structured, uncreative ritual protects truth in a way that knowing never can.
Okay.
And honestly, it gets a little uncomfortable because it forces us to look at how explanation is often just a playground for the human ego.
All right, let's get into that. The ego trap. The text makes this bold claim that philosophy depends on explanation, and explanation is easily co-opted by ego.
Right, so let's break that down. Think about what happens when you learn a profound truth or a new philosophical concept. The very first thing you do is try to put it into words. You process it through your own brain. And there is a specific progression described here that I think is just brilliant. It says, over time, insight becomes opinion, and opinion becomes performance.
Insight becomes opinion, and opinion becomes performance. That's painfully accurate.
It is, isn't it?
I mean, just look at social media. Look at LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Someone reads a book on Stoicism or listens to a podcast about meditation. They have a genuine insight. Oh, I should be less reactive.
That's the insight.
That's the insight. But give it 24 hours. Suddenly, it's not an insight anymore. It's a post. It's a declaration. Here is why I am a Stoic leader.
Exactly. And 5 minutes after that, it's not even about the Stoicism anymore. It's about the brand of being a Stoic.
It becomes a costume.
Precisely. The argument is that philosophy, because it relies on mental interpretation, can be, and I love this list from the source, it can be argued with, personalized, stylized, and worn as identity.
It becomes a fashion accessory.
Yeah.
You wear your existentialism or your veganism or your political theory just to show the world who you are. But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't that just how humans process things? I mean, we are individuals. We have to filter things through our own experience. Is it really so bad if I take a philosophy and stylize it to fit my life? That sounds like adaptation, not destruction.
It is adaptation, but that's the problem. Say, if the goal is to preserve a specific truth for 1,000 years, adaptation is just a nice word for distortion.
I see.
If the truth is tied to your identity, what happens when your identity changes? Or what happens when you want to feel unique? You tweak the philosophy, you edit it. You say, well, I'm a Stoic, but, I don't like the part about suppressing emotions, so I'll just change that.
And then 50 years later, the original idea is unrecognizable. It's been personalized to death.
Exactly. Explanation is unstable because it relies on the individual interpreter. And let's be honest, individuals are unreliable narrators. We are moody, we are vain, and we are forgetful.
So if philosophy is this fragile thing that gets warped by our need to be the main character, how is ritual different? Because to me, ritual can feel so oppressive. It feels rigid.
And that rigidity is exactly the point. That rigidity is the feature, not the bug. The text draws a brilliant distinction between what philosophy asks of you and what ritual asks of you.
Okay, lay it out for me.
Philosophy asks, what do you think? What do you believe? Who are you?
Those are all very me-centered questions. They invite me to talk about myself.
They do. Now contrast that with ritual. A ritual does not ask what you think. It doesn't even ask what you believe.
Which is wild, right? You can be in the middle of a church service or a graduation ceremony or a military drill, and you could be thinking about your grocery list.
Totally.
You could be thinking, I disagree with all of this. But if you are standing in the right spot and saying the words, you are doing the ritual correctly.
Exactly. Because the ritual isn't polling the audience. It doesn't care about your internal monologue. According to the breakdown we're looking at, ritual asks, what do you do? Where do you stand? When do you speak? When do you remain silent? What do you touch?
It's all physical. It's spatial.
It's about boundaries. What do you refrain from touching? How do you move through this doorway? These are concrete, undeniable commands. You can't really stylize standing in a specific spot. You're either there or you aren't.
I'm trying to visualize this. Let's take something heavy, like a funeral.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
If you approach a funeral with philosophy, you have to explain death. You have to rationalize grief. You have to come up with some profound statement about the afterlife. And honestly, when you're grieving, you just can't do that. Your brain is broken.
You have no words, and if you try to invent them, they feel so hollow.
But the ritual just says, wear black, walk slowly behind the box, throw a handful of dirt.
It carries you.
It's like the ritual is a container. I don't have to be smart. I don't have to be profound. I just have to do.
And that is what the text means when it says, ritual encodes truth without requiring interpretation. The truth of grief, of respect, of transition, it's locked inside the movement itself. It is safe from your brain trying to overthink it or fix it.
Safe from your brain. I like that. The text uses the phrase narrative control. When you explain something, you have narrative control. You are telling the story.
Yes.
But when you perform a ritual, the truth is placed outside the individual's narrative control.
You are stepping into a script that was written long before you were born. You are an actor, not the screenwriter. And for a generation that is obsessed with writing our own stories, that is incredibly confronting.
It really is. We are told constantly to own our truth. But this leads us to what I think is the most mind-bending part of this deep dive. The paradox of understanding.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
So we usually assume that to preserve a tradition, we need to teach people what it means. We need Sunday school. We need lectures. We need to make sure everyone gets it.
Yeah.
But the argument here is the exact opposite.
It is. It says, a rite can be repeated correctly by someone who does not understand it.
Which sounds like mindless repetition. And usually when we say someone is doing something mindlessly, that's an insult. It means they're a sheep.
A robot, yeah.
They're a robot. But look at the flip side the text provides. While a philosophy can be distorted immediately by someone who thinks they understand it.
That's the kicker. The person who thinks they get it is actually the dangerous one.
Right.
Exactly. Think about the person who takes a complex idea, scientific, spiritual, political, and says, oh, I totally get this. Actually, I can say it better. I can improve it.
And they simplify it. They strip out the nuance. They memify it.
Because the person who thinks they understand feels empowered to edit. They feel empowered to modernize it. But the person who doesn't understand but respects the form, the person who says, I don't know why we bow here, but my grandfather did it, so I will do it, that person changes nothing.
So the ignorance, or maybe it's the humility of just following instructions, acts as a preservative.
It's a protective feature. Ancient traditions trusted form more than explanation because form constrains interpretation. If I tell you to sit in a chair and close your eyes for 10 minutes, there is very little wiggle room for you to mess that up with your ego.
Right.
But if I tell you to contemplate the nature of stillness, you could come up with 1,000 different wrong interpretations.
You probably write a blog post about how stillness is actually about movement.
Exactly. You'd write a manifesto. You'd start a podcast about it.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
But this brings up a really interesting distinction about ownership. The text says, explanation invites ownership. Ritual enforces participation without possession.
Participation without possession. That is key.
What does that actually look like, though?
Think about a soldier in a parade or a choir member. When you are singing in a choir, you are participating fully. You are essential, but you do not own the song.
Right.
You cannot decide to sing a solo in the middle of the harmony just because you feel like it. You are a part of a whole.
It's humbling. You're a cog in the wheel, but in the best possible sense.
Yes, you can't take the ritual home and put your name on it. And I think that brings us to the biggest hurdle people have with ritual today, the boredom factor.
Oh, man, the boredom. I'll be honest, this is my big struggle. I've been in situations, wedding ceremonies, formal events, even just meditation classes, where I'm standing there thinking, this is torture. Why are we doing this? This feels empty. I could be doing something productive.
And according to our source material, that feeling tells us something very specific about you.
Oh, great. Go ahead. Roast me. What does my boredom say about me?
It says you might be organized around performance.
Organized around performance. Okay, unpack that.
The argument is that a person organized around performance finds ritual frustrating, empty, or boring. Why? Because there's nothing to express, nothing to signal, nothing to personalize.
Ouch. So my boredom is basically my ego throwing a tantrum because nobody's looking at me.
In a way, yes. If your primary mode of being is, look at how unique I am, or look at how smart I am, then ritual is torture. Because ritual doesn't reward cleverness. It doesn't flatter your intelligence. It doesn't matter if you are the smartest person in the room or the dullest. You both have to kneel at the same time. The ritual doesn't care about your charisma.
That is brutal. It's basically saying you're bored because you're not the star of the show.
It says it simply either holds or it doesn't. It's a binary state. You do it or you don't. There is no doing it with style.
But surely there are people who don't find it boring? I know people who love this stuff, who find deep comfort in liturgy or routine.
The text calls them people organized around alignment.
Alignment.
For them, ritual is stabilizing. It's clarifying. And here is the beautiful part. It's stabilizing because it removes the burden of self-authorship.
The burden of self-authorship. That phrase really hit me. Because we live in a time where we are constantly told we have to write our own story, create our own brand, define our own truth.
It is incredibly heavy. Think about the pressure. You have to wake up every morning and invent who you are. You have to decide your values, your image, your purpose. That is exhausting.
It's crushing. No wonder we're all burnt out.
Ritual offers a relief from that. It says, put the pen down. You don't have to write this chapter. Just stand here. Just say these words. It blocks the ego's impulse to claim insight as identity.
It's like an ego check built right into the system. You check your ego at the door because there's simply no room for it inside the form. It's like trying to bring a giant suitcase onto a roller coaster. Just doesn't fit.
And that is why it survives. This brings us to the survival aspect. The text talks about cultural collapse.
Yeah, this part got a little apocalyptic, but in a very grounded way. It talks about what happens when things fall apart, when language degrades, when belief fragments.
Think about periods of history where society breaks down. Maybe the education system crumbles, where the dominant ideology splits into warring factions. Words start to lose their meaning.
Right.
If your connection to truth relies on complex philosophical arguments and suddenly nobody agrees on what words mean anymore, that philosophy turns into ideology. It turns into conflict.
My explanation versus your explanation.
Exactly. But the ritual remains. When philosophy turns into ideology, ritual remains. Because as we established, it doesn't depend on persuasion. It doesn't require us to agree on the why. It just requires the form to be faithfully enacted.
It's like a lifeboat. The ship of understanding might sink, the libraries might burn, the schools might close, but the lifeboat of doing keeps floating. You can teach a child to bow or to light a candle, even if you can't teach them to read Aristotle.
And we see this happening right now. The text makes a really sharp observation about modern spirituality. We think we've moved past ritual. We think we're too advanced for that old, structured stuff.
We're spiritual but not religious, right?
Exactly.
Right, we discard the old ways. We say, I don't need a church, I have a podcast.
But do we really discard it? The argument here is that we discard it only to quietly reinvent it.
Oh, totally. We don't call them rituals anymore. That word is too religious. So what do we call them?
We call them routines. We call them protocols. We call them hacks.
Morning optimization protocol.
Exactly. Think about the modern obsession with the ice bath.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
It is a ritual. It is physically painful. It requires you to override your instinct. You have to enter a specific container, literally for a specific amount of time. You have to breathe in a specific way.
And you don't ask why while you're in the water.
Yeah.
You just survive it.
You submit to the form. And people claim it gives them mental clarity, resilience, a sense of grounding. They are doing penance, essentially. They are doing ascetic practice. They just call it biohacking, so their ego can accept it.
Embodiment work, that's another one. We go to these classes where we move around and breathe, which is basically just secular prayer movement.
We strip them of their lineage, we take away the ancient names, but the function is identical. We are desperate for structure. The text says structure is needed even when denied. We are trying to get back to that place of participation without possession, even if we pretend we're just optimizing our dopamine levels.
It's funny, we try to make these new routines about self-improvement, which is very ego-driven, very look at me improving, but deep down, I think we're just looking for that same stability, that same relief from having to be the author of everything.
And that really underscores the main thesis here. Ritual survives because it doesn't try to explain truth, it preserves it. And in a world where understanding is fragile, where facts are debated and logic is twisted, preservation is the most valuable thing we have.
It's the difference between keeping a seed in a vault versus writing a description of a flower.
That is a perfect analogy.
If you write a description of a flower and the language changes or the page gets wet or someone mistranslates it, you lose the flower. You might end up thinking the flower was a tree, but if you have the seed, the form, you don't need to describe it.
Yeah.
You just plant it and the flower comes back.
The ritual is the seed. It waits for us to be ready. It holds the pattern until we are capable of inhabiting it again. It doesn't matter if we understand the seed, we just have to plant it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left thinking about my own relationship with structure. We've covered how explanation is a trap for the ego, that insight to performance pipeline. We've talked about how ritual protects truth by bypassing our need to get it. And we've looked at how we're all secretly craving this structure, even if we have to invent new names for it.
I think the big takeaway for you, the listener, is to reassess the value of form in your life. In an information age, we are drowning in explanations. We are drowning in why. We think we need more data, but maybe we don't. Maybe there is immense wisdom in simply finding a what and sticking to it.
Just stand here. Do this. Don't worry about why for a minute.
Exactly. Give your ego a break.
Here's a final thought I want to leave you with, and it's a bit of a challenge based on what we've discussed. The text suggests that ritual exposes readiness. If you find yourself resisting structure, if you find yourself bored by repetition, or rolling your eyes at tradition, or feeling like you're above just following instructions,
Here comes the challenge.
ask yourself, is the ritual actually empty? Or is your ego just panicking because it's being asked to sit in the back seat? Are you bored because nothing is happening, or are you bored because you aren't the one making it happen?
That is the question to sit with.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.